Welcome to F for Forensics, the podcast where we dive deep into the bits and bytes of the digital world. I'm your host, and today we're embarking on another exciting deep dive. F is for Footprints Tracing User Activity Across Systems. It's really an exploration into, well, the invisible world of digital forensics, isn't it? Where every single digital action, intentional or maybe not, leaves this indelible mark.
Yeah.
Like a silent whisper in the machine.
That's exactly right. For this deep dive, we've been just immersing ourselves in this fascinating stack of material. It meticulously uncovers precisely how every click, every keystroke, every network interaction, really every whisper to a digital system leaves behind an undeniable trace.
Yeah, a trace.
It's truly like a secret language, written in bits and bytes, just waiting for a skilled translator to piece it all together, to build a coherent narrative of what actually happened.
That must be painstaking work.
Oh, it is. It's painstaking, but the revelations you can get, they're often really profound.
Absolutely. So our mission today is basically to pull back the curtain on this digital detective work. We're going to explore what these digital traces or footprints really are, how seasoned forensic experts actually go about finding them, even when users have meticulously tried, to cover their tracks. And crucially, what these hidden footprints can reveal about user behavior and intent.
Right.
It sounds like a constant cat and mouse game, and I think people might be surprised at how often the system itself, just by its design, kind of aids the cat.
Indeed. Yeah, we'll be looking at how expert analysts navigate this intricate, multi-layered digital landscape, how they connect seemingly disparate pieces of information like a tiny timestamp here, a file fragment there, maybe an obscure registry entry somewhere else.
Little breadcrumbs.
Exactly. To meticulously build a complete, often irrefutable narrative of what happened on a system. It's about seeing the forest for the trees, definitely, but also recognizing the huge significance of every single leaf, because each one tells part of the story.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start following those digital crumbs. Because what might seem like a simple concept, like, just check your browser history, that's really just the very, very tip of an enormous complex iceberg. So let's kick off with what might seem like the absolute basics, but, for us, it's the fundamental starting point.
Yeah.
When we talk about user footprints in the context of digital forensics, what exactly are we referring to? Like, what kind of digital traces are we talking about that get left behind? Often, without the user even realizing, right, the sheer volume or how long they stick around.
Right. User footprints are essentially the persistent, often invisible digital echoes of a person's actions on any computing system. Think of them as the residual evidence of any interaction, whether that interaction was a conscious, deliberate action, or maybe an entirely unintentional byproduct of the system just operating as designed. Every single thing you do on a system.
Every single thing.
Pretty much. From the most obvious task, like launching a web browser or saving a document, to the most mundane background operation, like, say, a temporary file being created automatically or a system cache being updated, it leaves some form of digital evidence.
Wow.
And this isn't just about what you intend to log, you see. It's about the automatic logging and recording that modern systems perform just as part of their inherent functionality. They do it purely to operate efficiently and reliably.
So they're kind of self-documenting machines.
In a sense, yes. Exactly. They are, in a way, self-documenting.
Okay, so it sounds less like a simple breadcrumb trail and more like a pervasive, almost invisible ink trail that's being written every single second. Can you give some concrete examples, like of these everyday digital crumbs that we might be leaving behind right now without even a second thought?
Absolutely. Yeah, these footprints show up in a myriad of ways. They range from the immediately recognizable stuff to the deeply hidden things. So on the obvious end, you've got your comprehensive browser history, right? Which meticulously logs every website you visit, including timestamps, very detailed login records showing precisely when and from where an account was accessed. That's the stuff most people kind of know about.
Right, the surface level.
Exactly. But then we delve into the more subtle, yet often incredibly rich areas that are often far more revealing forensically.
Like what?
Well, this includes things like temporary files, for instance. These are automatically created by applications as you use them. And they often hold fragments of documents, images, or data that were being processed, even if you never explicitly hit save. Or consider the command history from a shell, particularly on, say, Linux or Mac OS systems. It literally records every single command a user has typed into the terminal.
Every command.
Every command. From a forensic perspective, this is just a goldmine for understanding and intent and specific actions. What did they try to do? What tools did they run? Then there are system-generated jump lists, which are common in operating systems like Windows. They display recently accessed documents and applications.
Oh, yeah, I see those in my start menu.
Exactly. And what's critical about these is that they often retain paths to items, even if those items have since been moved or deleted from the original location.
Seriously, even if they're deleted?
Yep, the link can persist. Furthermore, printer spool files. Sometimes they contain a cached copy of a document sent to print, even if the original document is long gone. And even just connecting a USB device leaves a whole host of registry entries and setup logs identifying the device, when it was first connected, when it was last connected. Crucial stuff in many investigations.
So, okay, even something as incredibly simple as just opening a file, which seems so totally innocuous, that actually counts as leaving a significant and persistent footprint.
It absolutely does. And this is a classic example of an unintentional footprint that is just forensically invaluable. Even a simple action like opening a file leaves behind valuable metadata.
Like what kind of metadata?
Well, this includes information like the last access times, often called A-time, or last access timestamps. They can pinpoint the exact moment a file was opened or viewed, but it actually goes deeper than that.
Okay.
The operating system and various applications maintain these things called most recently used, or MRU lists.
MRU lists?
Yeah, MRU lists. They're essentially dynamic records kept by applications and the OS itself, showing files that have been recently interacted with, opened, or saved. What's truly remarkable about MRU lists is that they capture an undeniable intent to access a file.
Intent.
Yes. Even if the user never saved it, or maybe they quickly closed it without modification, or even immediately deleted it afterwards, it's like a snapshot of a user's fleeting interaction, but solidified into persistent evidence. And these MRU lists, they are incredibly difficult to truly fully eradicate.
That's a powerful revelation. So, okay, this isn't just a Windows thing, right? Does this concept of pervasive digital footprints apply universally across different operating systems? Or are some, I don't know, more footprint heavy than others?
Precisely. Yeah, it's universal. While the specific format, the location, the names might differ significantly from one OS to another, the underlying principle that user interaction leaves a trace, that remains constant across the board.
So Windows, Mac, Linux.
All of them. They're universally present across Windows, macOS, and Linux systems. For instance, while Windows uses its registry very heavily and prefetch files and specific event logs for tracking, macOS has its own system. It uses property lists, .plist files they're called, unified logs like logged, and specific databases that record activity.
Right.
Linux systems, on the other hand, rely heavily on various log files like stuff in the var log directory and, of course, those shell histories we talked about. The fundamental mechanism of logging and recording activity just for basic system functionality and recovery ensures that no matter the platform, there's always a trail.
It's just built in.
It's an inherent design choice for system stability and performance. They need this information to function properly.
Okay, and mobile devices, we all carry them everywhere. They're practically extensions of ourselves, constantly connected. Are they also gold mines for these digital footprints? I imagine they'd be even more so, right?
You're absolutely right. Mobile devices are an astonishing goldmine for footprints, perhaps even more so than traditional desktop computers.
Why is that?
Well, largely due to their constant connectivity, the multitude of sensors, they have GPS, accelerometers, mics, cameras, and just the sheer volume of personal data they handle.
Makes sense.
Consider the wealth of information in app usage logs. They detail exactly when an application was opened, how long it was used, sometimes even specific functions within the app that were accessed.
Wow.
Then there's the incredibly detailed location history, often spanning years, which tracks your movements using a combination of GPS, Wi-Fi network triangulation, and cellular tower data. This isn't just about where you've been, it's about patterns of life.
That's a bit scary.
It can be. Even seemingly subtle things like predictive text entries or keyboard cache data can reveal the types of conversations you frequently have, the words you type, or the information you frequently interact with. It hints at interests, contacts, activities.
Okay.
Furthermore, on mobile devices, you've got call logs, SMS, and MMS message databases, detailed Wi-Fi connection logs showing every single network you've ever connected to, even accelerometer and gyroscope data that can indicate movement and orientation.
That's incredibly detailed.
It is. The digital trail from mobile devices especially is just vast, deeply personal, and it often accumulates quietly in the background, completely unnoticed by the user. This leads to a rich tapestry of activity for forensic analysis.
So analysts can get different levels of data from phones.
Yes, definitely. When examining mobile devices, forensic analysts often differentiate between logical acquisition, which is like extracting the easily accessible files like call logs, messages, photos, and physical acquisition. Physical acquisition is a much deeper bit-for-bit copy of the device's storage memory. That allows recovery of deleted data and hidden partitions, revealing even more layers of information.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, our listener? It basically means that every single digital interaction, from browsing the web to sending a quick text message or even just plugging in a USB drive, it contributes to a remarkably detailed and persistent record of your activity, whether you're consciously aware of it or not.
There's truly no such thing as a truly invisible digital action. The system is always watching, always recording, largely for its own operational needs.
Okay, so we've firmly established that digital footprints are, well, everywhere, from your desktop to your phone, meticulously recording your every move. But how do forensic experts actually go about finding and interpreting these often hidden traces? This is where the cat and mouse game truly gets interesting, right? As we dive into the specialized tools and the cunning techniques used to trace this intricate digital trail.
Exactly. This is where the detective work truly intensifies. We're moving from understanding what footprints are to how they are discovered, preserved, and analyzed. Forensic analysts employ a wide and constantly evolving range of specialized tools and methodologies to unearth and analyze these traces.
It's not just about knowing where to look then.
No, it's about transforming raw binary data into actionable intelligence. It's a combination of deep technical prowess, meticulous process, and honestly, investigative instinct.
So given this vast ocean of data, where does one even begin to look for these digital crumbs? Is there like a logical starting point for any digital investigation?
A primary and always essential starting point is log files. These are essentially the system-generated diaries, meticulously recording events and activities as they happen.
Right.
On Windows systems, we rely heavily on Windows event logs. They're incredibly comprehensive. They document everything from system startups and shutdowns to application installations, critical security events like failed login attempts.
Failed logins are key.
Oh, yeah. Event ID 4625 for failed logins, for example, that's a classic. They also track attempts to modify system security settings. On Linux and networking devices, syslog is kind of the de facto standard for message logging. It provides a centralized repository of system messages, kernel events, application activities.
Okay.
And then, of course, there are application-specific logs, like web server access logs, database transaction logs, or FTP logs detailing file transfers. These logs collectively provide a chronological, time-stamped record of activity. They really form the backbone of any investigation by giving us that high-level sequence of events.
So these are like the official, highly detailed, timestamped diaries of the system, written by the system itself.
Got it. What's next after the logs? Where do you dig deeper?
After the logs, especially on Windows systems, we dig deep into the registry hives.
Ah, the infamous Windows registry.
Exactly. The Windows registry is this huge hierarchical database that stores low-level settings for the operating system, hardware, and for applications that integrate with it. These hives are incredibly rich sources of user activity because they often contain configuration settings and historical data that persist even after applications are uninstalled or files are deleted.
So stuff sticks around in there.
Oh, yeah. Areas like User Assist, for instance, are forensic gold mines. They track executable files launched by a user, including their run count, the last time they were run, and the path they were run from, even if the program was run from a network share or removable drive.
Wow.
Run MRU records applications are commands launched via the run dialog box. And shell bags, often overlooked, are specific registry keys that cache details about user interaction with folders. Folders, like which folders I opened.
Exactly. Including network shares and removable drives. Even after those folders are no longer connected or physically exist, they record view settings, sizes, positions of folders. These registry keys capture a user's interaction with the file system on a profound, persistent level, often far beyond just what's visible in File Explorer.
I've often heard about command history on Linux systems being really important for investigators. Is that part of this deep dive into artifacts? It sounds like really direct evidence of user interaction.
Absolutely. It's one of the most direct forms of insight into a user's activities you can get. On Linux, shell history files, most notably .bash history or maybe .zish history, depending on the shell, they're invaluable.
Where are those usually found?
typically located in a user's home directory. And these files, they literally record every command a user has typed into the terminal. You can see their troubleshooting steps, which programs they ran, the directories they navigated through.
So you can see if they tried to delete things?
Exactly. You can even see attempts to cover their tracks by using specific deletion or obfuscation commands. It's truly like watching over their shoulder step by step as they interacted directly with the command line. This provides direct insight into a user's intent and specific actions, more so than almost any other artifact in a Linux environment.
Okay, what other kinds of files are important for tracing activity? Are there hidden ones? Like things most users wouldn't even know exist but are absolutely crucial for forensics.
Oh, many, many more. We also look extensively at prefetch files on Windows.
Prefetch, what do they do?
Windows uses them to speed up application launching by preloading components it thinks you'll need. Crucially for us, these .pf files also record application execution. They log the application's path, its run count, and the last 10 times it was executed.
So it proves a program was run, even if it's deleted.
Correct. It confirms program execution. LNK files, or shortcut files, are another excellent source. They often reveal the original path of a file, its creation time, its size, and even the volume serial number where the original file resided.
Even if the original file is gone?
Even if the original file has been moved or deleted from the system, they are incredibly robust pointers that defy simple deletion. They stick around.
Wow.
And then there are system memory files. These include pagefile.ss, which is the virtual memory swap file.
Right, the swap file.
And hibernation files, hyberfill.ss. These can contain fragments of data, open documents, running processes, and even potentially encryption keys or password fragments from when the system was last active or hibernating.
So from memory itself?
Exactly. Together, these disparate files and their fragments can paint a surprisingly full and detailed picture of user activity, even if the user has tried to clean up. We also look for artifacts left by cloud synchronization services like Dropbox or OneDrive.
Right.
They maintain local caches and logs that can reveal synchronized files, even if they were later deleted from the cloud or the local folder.
And since so much of our life, both personal and professional, are spent interacting with web browsers, I imagine browser artifacts must be absolutely crucial for understanding user activity. They're like windows into our digital soul, aren't they?
They are, perhaps more than ever before, even beyond simple browser history, which, as we've discussed, is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's an astonishing wealth of information there.
Such as?
Well, for example, modern browsers like Chrome store their history, downloads, cookies, session data, even form data in complex SQLite databases. These can be forensically parsed for an incredibly granular view of web activity.
SQLite databases.
Okay. Firefox has similar structures, including recovery files that can store session data from unexpected closures, like crashes. What's truly fascinating here, and often a source of surprise for users, is that even when someone attempts to use incognito or private browsing mode.
Yeah, everyone thinks that makes them invisible.
Right. They often believe no traces are left, but residual evidence still exists. While these modes prevent persistent storage of some data on the local machine, we can often find residual DNS lookups.
DNS lookups.
Yeah, they reveal the domains that were accessed even if the page content isn't cached. The computer still had to ask where the website was. Or if the system was captured live using live forensics techniques, analyzing the running memory traces can temporarily hold browsing data, full URLs, and even user input from forms.
So incognito isn't foolproof.
Far from it. While incognito mode might offer a superficial layer of privacy, it's far from a perfect cloaking device against a determined forensic analyst.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it basically means that even really sophisticated attempts to hide activity often fail. Not because forensic experts are mind readers necessarily, but because there are just so many disparate interconnected sources of information logs, registry keys, cache files, memory that can be cross-referenced.
Exactly. The digital landscape is truly full of interconnected clues. Pulling on one thread often unravels the whole tapestry. It's like the system itself is inherently designed to tell its story, even if the user desperately doesn't want it to.
Okay, theory is one thing. But how do these sophisticated techniques actually play out in real-world investigations? Can you maybe share some scenarios where these digital footprints, often invisible to the casual user, led to truly critical breakthroughs, like solving a puzzle that seemed utterly unsolvable?
Absolutely. These case examples really bring the abstract concepts we've been discussing to vivid life. They demonstrate the immense power of these digital trails. One time, we were brought in on a case where the main objective was to recover and, crucially, confirm the existence of a specific document.
Okay.
The user had clearly tried to erase it. They went to great lengths, multiple deletion attempts. The file name was gone from the system's active file tables, and a quick keyword search on the drive yielded absolutely nothing. It seemed completely obliterated from the system's current view.
So at that point, it must have seemed like a total dead end for finding the document itself. What was your next move then?
It absolutely could have been, yeah. If we hadn't known where else to look for those subtle echoes. We started systematically examining the system's jump list.
Those recent items lists again.
Exactly. Those recent items that pop up in Windows applications and the Start menu. And bam, there it was. The full path to the deleted document was still recorded there, listed as a recently accessed item within a common application, complete with a timestamp.
No way.
Yes way. This single artifact, a seemingly innocuous list of recently opened files, provided irrefutable proof that the document had existed and been used, even though its primary file system entry was gone. It was like finding a detailed, time-stamped receipt for something someone claimed they never possessed and then meticulously shredded. The system's own convenience features inadvertently became the most damning evidence.
That's incredible. That a simple recent items list, just a convenience feature, could be the key to proving a file's existence. I remember you mentioning a case involving a remote access tool, which is a common vector for unauthorized access in corporate breaches. How did digital footprints help unravel that one?
Ah, yes. That was a classic example of an attempted cover-up that ultimately failed due to the persistence of digital echoes. In that specific scenario, a user had installed and subsequently run a remote access tool, granting them illicit control over another system.
Okay.
Immediately after, they attempted to delete all traces of it, believing they'd covered their tracks thoroughly. However, our deep dive into the Windows registry, it still held a persistent record. Within the user assist key, we found the installer's original location and execution count, confirming it had been run.
So users just caught it.
It did. And, more critically, those shell bags we mentioned earlier, the ones that track folder access details, they provided concrete evidence. They confirmed that the specific folder where the remote access tool was initially accessed and launched had indeed been opened by the user. It provided a time-stamped record of their navigation into that location, including details about the remote server if it was accessed over the network.
Wow.
This correlation showed a clear, deliberate act of accessing and executing the tool even after the attempted cleanup. It painted a picture of intent and execution that couldn't be denied, showing not just what happened, but the path the user took to do it.
So even if the executable file itself is gone, the activity of interacting with it leaves this kind of digital ghost in the machine. An echo of his presence. Okay, and what about phishing attacks? That's such a prevalent threat in today's interconnected digital landscape. How do footprints help in those investigations when users are tricked into clicking malicious links?
In a particularly insightful phishing case, we had a user who clicked on what turned out to be a malicious link embedded in an email. Their immediate reaction, probably out of panic or trying to hide their mistake, was to clear their browser history entirely, hoping to conceal the activity.
Right, the first thing you'd think of.
Exactly. But browser history is just one piece of the puzzle, and often the most superficial one. We knew the user had visited something malicious, the DNS cache on the compromised machine. It still contained a record of the domain query for the malicious site.
The DNS cache again.
Yep. Essentially, the machine had asked, where is this website? And temporarily remembered the IP address it resolved to. This is a very low-level system function. And when we cross-reference that DNS query with firewall logs, which record all inbound and outbound network connections.
Ah, the network logs.
Bingo. We found a corresponding outbound connection to that exact malicious IP address and port, matching the precise timestamp from the DNS query. Furthermore, deep packet inspection on the network traffic, where available, showed the actual HTTP request headers sent to the malicious domain. The puzzle pieces just clicked into place.
So you could reconstruct it.
Precisely. It showed the exact moment of compromise and the user's interaction with the malicious site, despite their attempts to erase the direct evidence from their browser. It allowed us to reconstruct the attack vector with extremely high fidelity, demonstrating that clearing browser history is merely a cosmetic cleanup.
This raises a really important question then. If these footprints are so pervasive, so resilient, and so interconnected, how difficult is it for someone to truly disappear digitally? It sounds like digital hide and seek, but with an unparalleled advantage for the seeker. It seems almost impossible to fully scrub your digital self.
It's truly a testament to the robust logging, caching, and recovery capabilities inherent in modern operating systems and applications. Complete digital disappearance for the average user. It's exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible. Not without highly specialized knowledge, dedicated low-level tools, and a very deliberate systematic approach. Every action in the digital realm seems to leave a persistent echo.
So it seems like users frequently and consistently underestimate just how much information is left behind, even after they think they've performed a thorough digital cleanup. Let's talk about some of the common, almost endearing mistakes users make when they try to cover their tracks. It's almost like the digital equivalent of wiping fingerprints with Cheeto dust, leaving an even more obvious, colorful, and unique residue.
That's a perfect analogy and quite accurate. Many users operate with a significant and often dangerous false sense of security about what truly gets erased when they perform simple delete actions. They believe that if something is no longer visible on the surface, it's truly gone forever. The most common mistake isn't just deleting files. It's failing to grasp that modern operating systems are inherently designed for recovery and auditing, not necessarily for user-friendly obliteration. Every delete is often just a subtle hide waiting to be revealed by the right tools.
Okay, let's start with the most common one then. Simply clearing browser history. That feels like it should be the ultimate solution to privacy concerns, right? Like closing the book and putting it away, leaving absolutely no record.
It's a common first step, definitely, for users trying to conceal their web activity, but it's quite an innocent attempt in its effectiveness, or rather, its lack of effectiveness from a forensic perspective.
How so?
Well, while the immediate history list displayed right there in the browser might be cleared, significant traces often remain in other locations. We can frequently still find evidence in the browser's disk cache.
A cache?
Yeah, which stores downloaded images, files, parts of web pages. Cookies, which track site visits and user preferences across sessions, can also persist and indicate previous visits to specific domains, even if history is cleared. Crucially, in forensic memory captures, or memory dumps, if the browser was recently active. These can contain fragments of visited pages, full URLs, and even user input data that were temporarily held in the system's volatile memory, the RAM.
Still in RAM.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Furthermore, as we discussed earlier, DNS caches and network firewall logs often retain records of connections to websites, even if the browser itself has no history of the visit. So while the immediate history is gone from the browser's interface, a robust trail of breadcrumbs often leads right back to the sites visited.
What about using a virtual private network, a VPN? People often think that simply connecting to a VPN makes them completely anonymous, like a ghost in the machine, totally untraceable.
A VPN can certainly mask your immediate IP address, yeah. It routes your internet traffic through an encrypted tunnel and makes it harder for external parties to track your immediate network connection back to your physical location. It's a good first step for basic network privacy.
Right.
But its effectiveness in truly anonymizing user activity can be negated almost instantly if the user then logs into a personal account.
Like their Gmail, Facebook, an online banking portal, any social media platform, just minutes later. At that point, they've inadvertently reassociated their online activity with a known, authenticated identity, regardless of the VPN's presence.
So the VPN hides where you are, but not who you are once you log in.
Exactly. The VPN might hide who they are to external network observers, but their actions and identities on those services are still linked. Plus, without proper configuration, VPNs can sometimes suffer from DNS leaks or WebRTC leaks.
Leaks.
Yeah, inadvertently revealing your real IP address or DNS server to certain websites, undermining the very anonymity they promise. And while reputable VPNs claim no logs policies, the internal logs of the client machine itself or even upstream network devices might still contain connection records to the VPN server.
Okay, so if I drag a file to the recycling bin and then empty it, or even hit Shift plus Delete to bypass the bin, it's gone, right? Permanently erased. That's what it feels like. Not necessarily, no. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions users have about digital data persistence. When you delete a file in most operating systems, the system typically doesn't physically erase the data itself from the hard drive or the solid-state drive.
It doesn't. What does it do then?
Instead, it just marks the space on the disk that the file occupied as available for new data to be written over it. Think of it like removing a book from a library's catalog. The book is still physically on the shelf, perfectly readable, until a new book is placed in its exact spot.
So until it's overwritten.
Exactly. Until that overwriting occurs, the deleted file is often still physically present on the disk and is highly likely to be recoverable using specialized forensic tools that can read those raw data blocks directly. True secure wiping requires specific techniques that intentionally overwrite the data multiple times with meaningless patterns, rendering it unrecoverable.
So simple deleting isn't secure wiping.
Not even close, forensically speaking. Simply deleting a file, even emptying the recycle bin, rarely achieves forensic destruction.
What about cleaning tools, like CCleaner? You hear about those. They're specifically designed and marketed to clean up temporary files, system junk, user traces. Surely those are effective at covering tracks.
Running tools like CCleaner is indeed a nice try from a user's perspective. They are marketed for privacy and system cleanup. However, from a forensic analysis standpoint, while they might remove some superficial traces like browser caches or recent document lists, they are rarely a complete solution for obliterating activity.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, forensic analysis can often reveal that the tool itself was run. It leaves its own activity logs, installation records, or registry entries indicating its usage and the time it was executed.
So the cleaning tool leaves its own footprint.
Precisely. Moreover, depending on the system configuration, the specific settings used within the cleaning tool, and just the thoroughness of the cleaning process, some critical artifacts may still persist or be recoverable through deeper, low-level analysis of the disk or memory. It's an attempt to obscure an act of intentional obfuscation, but it's rarely a complete and forensically sound obliteration of a user's digital footprint.
It's like trying to sweep sand off a beach with a broom, maybe. You'll move some, but the underlying structure remains, and the act of sweeping itself leaves identifiable marks.
That's a great way to put it. It often just creates new artifacts about the attempt to clean.
What's truly fascinating here is just that the digital world has so many layers of information, generated by so many different system components, that simple single actions to delete or hide are often just insufficient to truly erase one's presence. It's a complex, interwoven web of data, and forensic experts are trained to untangle it thread by thread, seeking out those persistent whispers. Okay, we've covered what user footprints are, how experts go about finding them, and some of the very common mistakes users make when they try, maybe unsuccessfully, to cover their tracks. Now, if you're a forensic analyst, or maybe just someone listening who wants to understand this field more deeply, what are some of the critical practical tips for making sense of all this often overwhelming data? How do you turn a pile of digital fragments into a coherent story? Like a seasoned detective piecing together clues at a crime scene.
Right. These principles are really the bedrock of reliable and effective digital investigations. First and foremost, always correlate timestamps across multiple logs and artifacts.
Timestamps are key.
They are absolutely crucial for building an accurate picture of when specific events occurred and, more importantly, how different actions relate to one another in time. A suspicious file execution at, say, 10:00, it gains immense context when you find a corresponding network connection to a known malicious IP at 10:00.05 a.m., and then maybe a browser download log for a suspicious executable at 10:00.101 a.m.
Connecting the dots.
Exactly. Without correlating those timestamps down to milliseconds if possible, they might just seem like isolated, meaningless incidents. And understanding the system clock source is also critical, by the way, as sometimes time synchronization issues can skew interpretation.
So it's like building a meticulous chronological story where every second, every millisecond counts. It's about revealing the sequence of events, the order things happened in.
Precisely. And that naturally leads to the next critical tip. Use timelines to construct a full narrative of user activity. Once you have correlated timestamps from disparate sources like event logs, file system metadata, MAT times they're called, and registry entries, compiling them into a comprehensive chronological timeline helps you visualize events.
Visualization helps, I bet.
It's incredibly powerful for identifying patterns, spotting anomalies, and clearly understanding the precise sequence of actions that led to a particular outcome. A timeline can reveal, for example, a user trying to log in multiple times, failing, then trying again with a different username, then finally succeeding, followed immediately by suspicious file access or data exfiltration. This kind of sequential understanding is vital for understanding intent and cause and effect.
It sounds like you're emphasizing not putting all your eggs in one basket, or relying on a single piece of evidence, even if it seems really compelling on its own.
Precisely. Never, ever rely on just one artifact or one single piece of evidence to draw a conclusion, especially in a critical investigation. Always corroborate everything you find with multiple independent sources of information.
Okay.
So if you find a suspicious file execution logged in a prefetch file, you should actively look for associated network connections in firewall logs, relevant registry entries showing its installation or usage, maybe shell history to see if the user typed a command to execute it, and even jump lists or MRU entries.
Look everywhere it might have touched.
Exactly. The more independent sources that confirm a specific detail or action, the stronger and more irrefutable your conclusion becomes. This multi-source validation builds a robust case that withstands intense scrutiny and cross-examination. And of course, maintaining a clear chain of custody for all evidence is absolutely vital throughout this process.
What about when nothing is happening? Or when there are strange gaps in the data? Is the absence of activity also important for an analyst? Can silence tell a story?
Oh, often the absence of activity can be just as telling, if not more so, than its presence. Always diligently look for unexplained gaps in user activity logs or system log files.
Why are gaps suspicious?
Well, these periods of silence can sometimes be the most suspicious. They could potentially indicate deliberate efforts to evade detection, like maybe a user rebooted into a live Linux environment from a USB stick to bypass logging on the primary OS, or intentionally wiped logs using a specialized tool. It could also indicate periods of unusual unlogged actions that happen off the system's radar, like maybe an attacker gained remote access without leaving typical login traces. A sudden, unexplained, and prolonged gap in a normally active system's logs is a massive red flag that demands deeper investigation.
And establishing a baseline for what constitutes normal behavior seems absolutely critical too, so you can quickly spot what's truly abnormal or malicious. Without that context, everything just looks like noise, right?
It absolutely is, yes. And it's a step sometimes overlooked by less experienced analysts. One of the most effective strategies is to create separate, distinct profiles for what you consider to be normal, routine user behavior versus what you might consider anomalous or suspicious behavior for that specific system or user.
Tailored to the context.
Exactly. Understanding what a particular user typically does on a system, what applications they regularly run, what times they usually log in, what network resources they normally access, what volume of data they typically move, helps you quickly spot deviations that could indicate malicious activity, policy violations, or even a system compromise. Without a baseline, everything looks like noise, and truly significant events can be missed.
Makes sense.
And finally, a very practical tip for any analyst. Automate the boring, repetitive stuff. Utilize scripts, specialized forensic tools like Ncase, FTK, or great open source alternatives like Autopsy and automation frameworks for that initial data collection, parsing, and preliminary analysis.
Let the tools do the heavy lifting.
Right. This frees you up from tedious manual tasks and allows you to dedicate your invaluable human intelligence, critical thinking, and investigative intuition to reviewing the truly weird, the unusual, and the genuinely suspicious stuff that requires nuanced interpretation and deep investigative thought. And knowing the limitations of your tools is also critical. No single tool can do everything.
What's truly fascinating here is how methodical this entire process is. It combines that cutting-edge technical expertise with a very human-like ability to piece together a compelling narrative, a complete story, from just fragments of information. It's truly about building a case, bite by bite, until the truth emerges from all that digital noise. And that wraps up our deep dive into F is for footprints, tracing user activity across systems. We've explored how everything from a simple click to a seemingly thoroughly deleted file leaves a persistent digital signature, often in ways users never anticipate, creating an almost inescapable trail that digital detectives can follow.
It's a profound reminder, isn't it, that in the digital world, there's almost always a trace. The systems are inherently designed to record for functionality, performance, recovery, and even attempts to erase often leave their own indelible marks, revealing the very act of concealment. The digital breadcrumbs are just everywhere.
So for you, our listener, this knowledge might prompt some significant reflection. Given how many persistent digital footprints we leave behind every single day, whether we're aware of it or not, what responsibility do we as users truly have for understanding and managing our own digital trails? It's a question that gains more urgency with every new technology we embrace, I think.
It's definitely an important question to ponder as our lives become increasingly intertwined with technology, and the line between our physical and digital selves continues to blur. Understanding these fundamentals empowers you to be more aware, hopefully, in the digital space.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into digital forensics here on F for Forensics. Next time, prepare for another exciting episode as we explore F is for finding ghosts in RAM.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, we'll be delving into live memory forensics, how malware hides in volatile memory, and much more. Make sure you subscribe to F for Forensics wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on social media at F for Forensics to stay updated.
Please do.
Stay curious, stay aware, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.